Hi, everyone. Welcome to this ProcessMaker 3 training session, which is part of the beginners training series powered by Diapo Diamond. I am your host and trainer, Afe Araram. For our 10th session, we shall be discussing email notifications in ProcessMaker. Now, it's very useful for your process to have email notifications as part of the feature design, so that users can get notified when cases come into their queue. And so at the end of this session, you should know more about using the task notification property, as well as creating templates for email notifications and the alternative method of using triggers to set up or add email notification features to your process design. So let's begin. It's always a nice thing to build email notifications into your process design so that when a case or request is routed to a task, then the user or users assigned to that task gets a mail notification that a request or case has been added to their queue on ProcessMaker. Now, by the phrase queue on ProcessMaker, we imply that the request is either in the user's inbox or the user's unassigned folder. So either the inbox folder or the unassigned folder. Now, for the inbox folder, it means that the task assignment rule for the task can either be cyclical or manual or value-based assignment rule. If it's in the unassigned folder, then the assignment rule that was employed for that task could either be the self-service assignment rule or the self-service value-based assignment rule. As a request moves along the process flow from task to task, from the start event to the end event, from one task to the other, that is what I refer to as the forward route or the forward path. At any given routing instance, from one task to the other, it's from a user to a user or a user to a group. Same thing occurs for the backward route. By backward route, we mean when the request gets to a decision gateway and there is need for that request to return to one of the previous tasks in that process flow, then that is the backward route or backward path. Now, for us to be able to add or include mail notifications in our design, there are basically two methods or approaches to email notifications. It's either you employ the task notification property, or you use email-related PM functions in a trigger. So let's see how we can get this done. Now, for the purpose of this lesson, we shall be making use of the tutorial playground process. Now, remember, we have an employee leave request flow, and just for to do a quick demo for this lesson, let's see, we've set the assignment rule for the first task to be value-based assignment, and makes use of the variable case owner UID to store the UID of the person who initiates the request. And the assigned users, it's the group employees. And if we check the steps rather of the task, we see that there is a trigger set case owner that sets the UID and the email of the person that raises the request. And we have a form. To preview the form, we have this form. And then when the case routes from the first task to the primary supervisor approval task, this has an assignment rule of value-based assignment, and we're using this variable supervisor UID to hold the UID of the supervisor. And if we check the gateway after it, there are conditions. And the condition is that when is approved is no, the request should return to the initiation task. If the condition, if is approved, then there are two possibilities. If secondary supervisor is set to yes, then the case should route from the primary supervisor task to the secondary supervisor approval task. But if secondary supervisor is no, then the case will route from the primary supervisor approval task to the HRO approval task. Now, for the HRO approval task, the assignment rule is self-service, and HRO officers is the group assigned to the task. And it's also a gateway here. If is approved is a no, the case or the request returns to the initiation task. But if it is a yes, the request or the process ends. Okay, so that's what we have. Now, if we right-click on a task and take properties and locate the notifications option on the left, you see that there are two options here. After routing, notify the next assigned user or users. The second alternative or option is notify the assigned user to this task. So let me explain. Now, the first option, after routing, notify the next assigned users. So if you click on this checkbox, you have an opportunity to define your email subject, the type of content, and the message itself. Now, this option means this whatever email message you type here, the next user, which is the supervisor task, the supervisor of the employee is the one that will get this email. Now, for the second option, let's cancel. For the second alternative, notify the assigned user to this task. If we set this property for this option, then whenever a case gets to this task, the user at this task is who gets the email notification. So these two options are available for all the tasks. So let's look at this very well and ask ourselves, how are we going to employ this particular method? So we have two options. It's either we set the email message that the assigned user of the next task will get, or we set the email message that the signed in user, the user signed to the current task, will get. Okay, so looking back at our design, when the employee submits a request, we want the primary supervisor to get an email. When the primary supervisor rejects the request, we want the employee to get the rejection email. But if the supervisor approves the request, we want either the secondary supervisor, or for the purpose of this session or this lesson, we'll consider just the HRO approval. We'll want the HRO group to receive the email notifications. Now, when the HRO group or the person at the HRO officer approves the request, the case should end, and we want the employee or any other person involved in the process to get a case completion email. But if HR rejects the request, we want the employee to receive a mail notification. Looking at this carefully, for the employee to receive a rejection notification or a rejection notification, then we need to set the properties of, for notifications, what we need to set is this: notify the assigned user to this task. So let us do that. Say request rejected. And let's just type a message here. Your employee leave request was rejected. Now, as you can see, we could use either for either the subject or the message itself, we can make use of process or case variables by using this case selector button. So you could include even data that are set in your case variables at runtime as part of your email notification message. And from what you can see here, what we have used so far is plain text. Let's save this. Now, once the employee sends an email, we want the primary supervisor to get a mail notification. So we will have to come to this task, go to properties, select notifications, and what we'll do, notify the assigned user to this task. That's what we're going to do. And then we'll say supervisor approval needed. Let's say, hi, supervisor, kindly treat my leave requests. Regards. Okay, let me save this. We'll also come here and take properties and then notifications, notify the assigned user, and we'll say HRO approval needed. And we'll come here and say hi HRO officers. Kindly attend to this leave request. Thank you. Regards. So we've set three email notifications now. The one we set on the first task will handle rejection notifications. The one we set on a primary supervisor approval task, we handle email notifications to the primary supervisor on the forward path. The one we set for HRO approval, we handle email notifications to the HRO officers group on the forward path. But the one we set on the first task, on the employee initiate leave request task, will handle email notifications on the backward path when the request is rejected. So let's test these email notifications that we have set. So we'll log in as Anu Bello. Then we go to new case and raise a case on the tutorial playground process. The case opens and we can select the supervisor as Audu Bako, and then we submit this. Submit to route to the primary supervisor approver, and the user is Audu Bako. Then we can log out. Now, before we log in as Audu Bako, let's see if an email notification was sent. Now, if we go to admin menu, go to the logs tab and go to emails, we see that for case 15 tutorial playground, hi supervisor, kindly treat my leave requests. Okay, so now let's see whether an email was actually sent. We refresh, we get this supervisor approval needed. Open, hi supervisor, kindly treat my leave requests. Okay, so that's working. Now let's check if Audu Bako rejects the request, whether a rejection email will be sent. So let's open the case as Audu Bako and we reject the request. When we click on submit, we see the next task is the initiation task and the user is Anu Bello. So let's do that and log out. So let's check our email logs if an email was sent. So refresh and we see the second one now. Your employee leave request was rejected. Okay, let's check our email inbox. Refresh and we see request rejected. So an email was sent. Okay, now let's log in again as Anu Bello. And submit the request again to Audu Bako. And as usual, an email will be sent. Let's refresh. Supervisor approval needed. An email will be sent, of course. So now let's log in as Audu Bako, the primary supervisor, and approve the case this time around. It goes to HRO approval. So let's log out and see if an email was sent. Refresh again. HRO approval needed. You see an email was sent to the HR. Now, let's log in as Hawa Hassan, who is a member of the HRO group. But this time, it will not be in our inbox, but in our unassigned folder. And that's the case right there. So if she were to reject it, it should go back to the employee, and the employee should receive a rejection email. So let's log out and now check, refresh, refresh. See that the request rejection email was sent. Now back to our process. What if the HR officer approves the request? The request is supposed to be completed on the process and an email notification is sent. We have not configured this. But remember that in our set case owner trigger, we set the email of the employee. That will be needed when we try to configure the properties of our end mail events. So when we select properties, we place in the email of the employee here and put the subject case completed, and you can type any message here using rich text to type a message here, whatever message you want the employee to receive at the completion of the case. Now let's go back and test. So just to show the entire forward path, we are going to delete these emails. Let's go to trash, select everything and delete. So we can see all the emails sent one by one. So let's log in as Anu below. And let's submit this request again. It should go to the primary approver, Audu Bako, who should receive an email. Now let's log in as Audu Bako and treat the case. This time around, we are approving it, and it should go to the HRO officer group. They should also get an email notification. Let's log out. And this time around, let's sign it as our.hassan and go to the unassigned folder, claim the case, and approve it. So case should be completed now. So let's click on finish. Then let's log out. Let's check which email notifications have been sent. Okay. So we see that the supervisor email notification was sent. The HRO email notification was sent. Let's just refresh. And the case completed email notification was sent. So this is how to use so this is how to so this is how we can make use of the task notification property to define our email notifications within our process design. Now, let's look at the second approach where we make use of email-related PM functions. So the first one is the PMF send message. We use this when we want to notify a specific user. And the second function is the PMF send message to group, which we make use of when we want to notify the users in a group. So to demo this, let's go to our process. This time around, we're going to go to our properties and disable the notification property we had set before. Let's do the same here. Let's disable this and save. So that we can be quick, I'm going to use a trigger here and here to set up or configure email notifications on the process. And it's up to you when you design your process to choose which approach to employ. If one looks so tedious, would employ the other one. Now, for me to use the email related PM functions in a trigger, I will need to create a trigger. So triggers, and I'll create a trigger and name it notify next user after employee. Okay, so trigger, we can put a description. I like putting descriptions for my triggers, but let's save this. The second trigger we'll need will be notify next user after primary supervisor. Okay. Note that for the first approach we made use of, we were always making use of plain text. Go to notifications, we're always using plain text. You could also make use of a HTML template. You will notice when we're using the first approach of setting the notification, task notification property, for the notifications we set, we always used plain text. You could also use a HTML template, and let's see how we can create one. Okay. Now, if we go to templates on our main toolbox and click on that, we can create, you can see a template already exists, and that email template is for the end event, the one we created here. Okay, so we can create an email template to use when we are notifying the supervisor. Okay, so let's say notify next approver. Now note this name very well because we are going to be using this HTML template. Okay, and we can use rich text to define what should be typed there. You can say hello. Let's make the text bigger. Font, area, or any other fonts you desire, or any fonts according to your organization branding rules or branding policy. You set the size of it. That's the advantage of using rich text to define your email templates. Okay. So we can say an employee leave request initiated, or leave request has been sent to your queue. Kindly treat promptly. Regards. So this can be it. Let us save it. So notify next approver.html. Take note of that. So we go to the task itself now, go to steps, and after routing is where we position notify next user after employee trigger. And then we open this, and right here, we would set the email from. So we say mail from. What will be the mail from? Let's say it is ProcessMaker at msb.com. Okay. Then the mail subject in this case now would be employee leave requests. Can do something like this and say case number, and we concatenate it with the case number of the process. Okay. Now we also set the mail to. So this is where the issue is now, because you will need to, when you are using triggers, you will need to get the email of the supervisor. So this is going to be a problem for us. So I will leave this and use the email that we have. So let's quickly settle something here. I just forgot about that. Mail templates. Mail templates. We said we'll use identify next approval.html. Okay. So let me quickly copy everything here. So the one we should set is the supervisor. This is a very good use case. So let's notify next user after primary supervisor. Okay. So we could use this. Okay. Now we have the employee email. We have the employee email. So why we could not do the other one was because we did not have the supervisor email. But let's use this to demo how to use PM functions for emails. Okay, so sorry, email. Employee email, I don't think we defined that variable. Let's save. Let's go back to our first task. We did not define that variable or register the variable. Okay, so let's copy this and then let's come to our variables and let's register it. Let's also register the supervisor email. Supervisor email. Supervisor email. And so that we can set the trigger for email notifications here, let's create another trigger and copy it from the one we've done before. Remember, for our cache advance, we had a trigger called set supervisor UID. So we will just copy it and remove the description. And then we can click on copy. So we have that there now. So which means at our first task, before assignment, we can place this select supervisor UID there. And as such, we can then continue with this notify next user after employee trigger. So the email here now will be the supervisor email. Okay. Okay. Now, this is what we then do. We want to ensure, or we want to use the PMF send message. If we go to wiki.processmaker and let's duplicate this put type PMF PM functions rather. Okay. So let's type it again. PM functions. Not PM function. Let's say for PM functions. Okay. We see notifications here. Let's see. Is there anything about email notifications? or better still, let me search for PMF send message. Okay, so these notifications. Let's see, is there any other? Okay, so ProcessMaker functions, email functions. Okay, let's take that. So we see this is the PMF send message, and its function sends out customized email notifications using a template. And you could check this out later for more information. See trigger messages. But let's see how is the function actually used. We pass in case UID, then we pass in a from string, then we also pass in the to string, and then the copy string, the blind copy string, the subject, the template. And if there is an array of fields, it's an optional parameter to define custom variables that can be inserted into the template file. You could also have an array to hold the attachments. Okay, so let's see how we can quickly use this. Let's copy this. This is what we want to use. The first parameter is the case UID, and we can always get that from application. The application system variable. So let's insert that. Now the second parameter is the from, then followed by to, and then the CC and the BCC. Now remember, we are notifying the supervisor, and we're not copying any person or blind copying any person. So we set in the from email, which is held in our variable mail from, and then the to email mail to, and for the copy, we'll leave it empty. We're not copying anybody. For the blind copy string, we'll leave it empty since we're not doing that. Now for email subjects, we use mail subjects. And for the email templates, we use mail templates. Now remember that other parameters like the array fields and the array attachments, we don't need them here. So we are good. Now, so that this function does not cause an error, we want to ensure that this function is only called when the email to variable has a value. So we could do something like this and say if the the mail to variable is not empty, then you should call this function. What that? Put that there. Okay, so this should work. So that the supervisor should be notified. Okay, now at the supervisor task, we also go to steps, and after routing, we want to notify next user. Oh, we already have it. Sorry, we already have it on the steps. So here we have two scenarios. The approver is approved can be reject, or sorry, is approved can be yes or no. So for the rejection scenario, we have if, and what is the variable that controls approver is approved. If is approved is equal to no, this is a rejection scenario. So we need to do something. Else, so now we want to handle the other possibility, which is the the approve scenario. So we can also say else if paste is a yes, then we need to do something. Now, if it's a no, we are notify the employee. If it's a yes, remember now we want to treat, we're only considering the HRO group, not the secondary supervisor yet. This is just to explain for explanation purposes. So let's say notify the HRO officers. Okay. So for us to notify the employee, what do we need? We need the PMF. Let's copy that. PMF send message function, and we will pass in application, the case UID, and then the email from, in this case, mail from the mail to empty string for copy, empty string for blind copy, then mail subject, and then the mail template. So as not to make mistake, it's better to copy and paste to avoid typographical errors in our code. Okay. And as usual, we want to say if the mail to variable is not empty, if the mail to variable is not empty, then that's when this function should be called. Okay. Now, as you can see, we cannot use the notify next approver.html template for a rejection scenario. So which means a rejection scenario will have its own mail template different from the approved scenario. So this cannot be here. This is only useful within this if block. So what would be the email notification for a rejection scenario? We'll have to go and create that one, and we can call it notify rejection. So let's get this name and go and create the template. So go to templates, create a new template, name it notify rejection, and say, hi, employee, your leave request was rejected. So let's take area and size 12. Let's just save that for now. And we go back to the steps for our primary supervisor, go back to that trigger tool that handles the email notifications. And we have been able to satisfy this line of code. And we also have an email template for this line of code. So we use this email, the system should use this email template, the notify rejection email template when it's a reject scenario, and to use the notify next approver template when it's an approved scenario. Okay. So we have mail from covered, that variable is covered outside. Mail to needs to be covered inside this block because we are notifying the employee. So the mail to, we're going to remove that there and put this here. So the mail to in this case is the employee email address, which we can select from a list of variables. So we insert that. So this let's cut this, put this here. So let's look at our variables again. Mail from is outside, which is okay. Mail to is inside to the employee. Mail subject is outside, which is okay. Then the mail template is inside here. So this block is covered. Now let's look at our proof scenario. For this, we need to notify a group. So which means we cannot use the PMF send message function. What we use here is the PMF send message to group. And this is used to send a notification to a group of users. So let's copy this and come to use it here. Paste. And what are the parameters for, what are the parameters for this function? We see the group UID. We need to get the group UID. We need to get the case UID. We need to get the string from the subject, the templates, the array of fields, the attachments, and some other things here. So let's make use of that. So apart from the mail template we are defining here, we need to remember that the first parameter in is the group UID. And how do we get the group UID? So let's see. Group UID. To get the group UID, there's another PM functions, ProcessMaker function that we can use to get the group UID. And that is called PMF get group UID. So it's used like this. PMF get group UID. Okay, and what you pass into the function is the name of the group. And for this, we're using HRO officers. Let's just ensure that we are correct. Go to users, group, HRO officers, okay? So this function, the PMF get group UID, we get the UID of this HRO officers group and pass it into this PHP variable, group UID, $group UID. So we can use $group UID now for the first parameter here. The second parameter, of course, is the application, the case UID from subject template, okay? So let's insert our application, the case UID, and that will be followed by the mail from, which is this variable we have here already. Mail from. And then we need the mail subject. So we already have that. Come down to. And then the mail templates. So we use this mail template variable defined in this block, if else if block. Is there any other thing we need? Let's check our parameters. We need to pass in an array of fields. It's optional. So we pass in an empty array. Attachments, we pass in an empty array. Then show message. If set to true, which is the default state, then the mail message will be displayed in the mail message history. So we'll set it to true. And then the delegation index, we use the index system variable for this. And then the next one is the email config UID. This is also optional. So we put an empty string here. Is it the last one? Yes, the limit of emails that can be sent in each batch. We can use a limit of 8 or 10. So 10, if there are more than 10 users in the group, in the HR officers group, this function will send the first batch of 10 and continue sending batches of 10 till all the users or the members of that group have received the email notification. So let's come back here. After email template, we are passing an empty array for the array of fields, an empty array for the array of mail attachments. Then we set this parameter. Remember that we're setting to true, the show message. And then the delegation index is an integer. So we can come here and stick the index as an integer. We're using at percentage, and then an empty string followed by send in batches of 10. So we've done that. Let's see, we have group UID covered, this covered, this covered. So we can, so that the function is only called when the group UID is correct, we can use another if statement here and say, as long as group UID is not empty, then we can send this. Okay, so this should work. So let's test what we've done. Remember that we've created 2 email templates, one to notify the next approver for a forward path, and one to notify the employee for a backward path. And then we created 2 triggers, one at this task to notify the supervisor, and one at this task, at the primary supervisor task, that we can use to notify the employee for a rejection or the HRO for an approved scenario. Okay. So let's test this now. First of all, let's delete this other email that we received before. Let's delete all of them so we can see the fresh ones. Okay. So let's log in as Anu or Bello and raise a new case on the tutorial playground and select a supervisor as Audu Bako, and we submit this. So there's a problem now, you see. It says appears the supervisor with email address is not a valid user. So before we run a test, let's confirm that we have everything in place. Here we are using the supervisor email, and where is the supervisor email determined? Oh, we don't need this supervisor UID. We don't need it. Let's remove it. What we need is what gets the employee's details. So sorry about that. Let's quickly go to our triggers. We don't need these and set supervisor UID. What we need to copy from our cash advance is the fetch employee details. Okay, so that's where the supervisor email is set. So let's copy that and let's put it in at the appropriate position in our process. Okay, so with this now, the value for employee and supervisor email will be set, and then this trigger can use that value. So to test this, so that we don't keep on submitting and submitting if there are issues, submitting cases, and then we see that there are issues, what we'll do is to position, for now, position this trigger here so we can test that it is working appropriately. And if indeed it is working appropriately, oh, sorry, there's a mistake here. Oh, we made a mistake. This should be in quotes. Wow, we made a previous mistake. I hope that's not the same mistake we made for this other one. For this one, we'll just put it here to test that what we have is working first. Okay, so let's do this. Okay. So we are testing this. Let's check. Remember, we placed it before assignment just to check that it works. So let's sign in as Anu Bello and create a new case. And if we click on this, oh, we need to select the supervisor, of course. We'll click on this. So at this point, it's before assignment has fired. So let's check, refresh, an email was sent. So let's check our inbox. refresh. You can see it now. Employee leave request case something. When you check, you see this message. Okay, so which means what we've done here works. We can put the trigger here now, close, and then when we get to the second task, we do the same thing there too. So for now, let's just delete this and then go to our case and actually submit it now. So the trigger will fire again now because we placed it after routing. And let's log out, and then we log in as audu.baco, and we see this case. So we want to check whether this works. So for a no, let's check for a no, whether it works for a no. Remember, we placed the trigger before assignment to test that it is working before we place it in its proper position. So when we take no, which is the case is not approved, it should go back to the employee. So let's see, was refresh, you see that a mail was sent. So I think we've not disabled something, the old notifications we did on this task. Let us see notifications. That's why we are seeing double. Okay, that's disabled. Oh, so why are we seeing two? Oh, sorry, I know why there are two. Remember that another mail was sent. If this one was the one we used to test, and then when we place the trigger in the right position, then it sent it again. Now this is the one for the rejection that we just tested for a no scenario. So let's go previous step and I'll tick yes, which is approved. Submit again. This time it goes to HR. And let's come to our email logs and refresh. And what do we see? We see that this is sent to the HR people. Okay, so which means it works. We're going to come back here now and place the trigger after routing, because that's where notification triggers are supposed to be. Okay, so we can refresh now. Delete this. We don't need it. Okay, so go back to our case. Previous step. Let's take a no, submit, and continue. And we should get an email notification for that, which is this. Your leave request was rejected. Okay. Now, when we log out and log in as anu.bilo, and we submit this again to audu.baco, if this time around audu.baco approves it, it should go to HR. So let's check if we have an email to HR. HR, sorry, remember we've not, so we'll get this to audu.baco. Let's refresh again and see. Yes, so we get this to HR, Awar Hassan. But this one also was sent because we had not removed the email notifications we set here earlier. So we've seen how we could use the email notifications property for a task, and we could use a plain text, or we'll select an HTML template for it. We'd also looked at how we could use triggers for defining or sending emails as well. This covers everything we need to know about email notifications and how we can incorporate them in our process. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. See you in the next one. Bye for now.